Frederick would repeat this strategy again and again, taking over small states here and there that weren't worth fighting for, at least not hard. In this way, almost before anyone noticed, he made Prussia a great power. Had he begun by invading some larger territory, he would have shown his ambitions too clearly and brought down upon himself an alliance of powers determined to maintain the status quo. The key to his piecemeal strategy was an opportunity that fell into his lap. Austria was at a weak moment. Silesia was small, yet by incorporating this neighboring state, Prussia enriched its resources and put itself in position for further growth. The two combined gave him momentum and allowed him space to slowly expand from small to large. The problem that many of us face is that we have great dreams and ambitions. Caught up in the emotions of our dreams and the vastness of our desires, we find it very difficult to focus on the small, tedious steps usually necessary to attain them. We tend to think in terms of giant leaps toward our goals. But in the social world, as in nature, anything of size and stability grows slowly. The piecemeal strategy is the perfect antidote to our natural impatience. It focuses us on something small and immediate, a first bite. Then, how and where a second bite can get us closer to our ultimate objective. It forces us to think in terms of a process, a sequence of connected steps and actions, no matter how small, which has immeasurable psychological benefits as well. Too often the magnitude of our desires overwhelms us. Taking that small first step makes them seem realizable. There is nothing more therapeutic than action. In plotting this strategy, be attentive to sudden opportunities and to your enemy's momentary crises and weaknesses. Do not be tempted, however, to try to take anything large. Bite off more than you can chew, and you will be consumed with problems and disproportionately discouraged if you fail to cope with them. The fait accompli strategy is often the best way to take control of a project that would be ruined by divided leadership. In almost every film Alfred Hitchcock made, he had to go through the same wars, gradually wresting control of the film from the producer, the actors, and the rest of the team. His struggles with screenwriters were a microcosm of the larger war. Hitchcock always wanted his vision for a film to be exactly reflected in the script, but too firm a hand on his writer's neck would get him nothing except resentment and mediocre work. So instead, he moved slowly, starting out by giving the writer room to work loosely off his notes, then asking for revisions that shaped the script his way. His control became obvious only gradually, and by that time the writer was emotionally tied to the project and, however frustrated, was working for his approval. A very patient man, Hitchcock let his power plays unfold over time, so that producer, writer, and stars understood the completeness of his domination only when the film was finished. To gain control of any project, you must be willing to make time your ally. If you start out with complete control, you sap people's spirit and stir up envy and resentment. So begin by generating the illusion that you're all working together on a team effort. Then, slowly nibble away. If in the process you make people angry, do not worry. That's just a sign that their emotions are engaged, which means they can be manipulated. Finally, the use of the piecemeal strategy to disguise your aggressive intentions is invaluable in these political times, but in masking your manipulations, you can never go too far. So when you take a bite, even a small one, make a show of acting out of self-defense. It also helps to appear as the underdog. Give the impression your objectives are limited by taking a substantial pause between bites, exploiting people's short attention spans, while proclaiming to one and all that you are a person of peace. In fact, it would be the height of wisdom to make your bite a little larger upon occasion, and then giving back some of what you have taken. People see only your generosity and your limited actions, not the steadily increasing empire you are amassing. Reversal. Should you see or suspect that you yourself are being attacked bite by bite, your only counter-strategy is to prevent any further progress or fait accompli. A quick and forceful response will usually be enough to discourage the nibblers, who often resort to this strategy out of weakness and cannot afford many battles. If they are tougher and more ambitious, like Frederick the Great, that forceful response becomes more crucial still. Letting them get away with their bites, however small, is too dangerous. Nip them in the bud. Here are further reflections on the fait accompli strategy. From the I Ching. Shen development. Gradual progress. This hexagram is made up of sun, wood penetration above, i.e. without, and ken, mountain stillness below, i.e. within. A tree on a mountain develops slowly according to the law of its being, and consequently stands firmly rooted. This gives the idea of a development that proceeds gradually, step by step. The attributes of the trigrams also point to this. Within is tranquility, which guards against precipitate actions, and without is penetration, which makes development and progress possible. And by General von Win-Zapp. All the conceptions born of impatience and aimed at obtaining speedy victory could only be gross errors. It was necessary to accumulate thousands of small victories to turn them into a great success. Chapter 30. Penetrate their minds. Communication strategies. Communication is a kind of war. Its field of battle, the resistant and defensive minds of the people you want to influence. The goal is to advance, to penetrate their defenses and occupy their minds. Anything else is ineffective communication, self-indulgent talk. Learn to infiltrate your ideas behind enemy lines, sending messages through little details, luring people into coming to the conclusions you desire, and into thinking they've gotten there by themselves. Some you can trick by cloaking your extraordinary ideas in ordinary forms. Others, more resistant and dull, must be awoken with extreme language that bristles with newness. At all cost, avoid language that is static, preachy, and overly personal. Make your words a spark for action, not passive contemplation. Visceral communication. To work with the film director Alfred Hitchcock for the first time was generally a disconcerting experience. He did not like to talk much on the sets of his movies, just the occasional sardonic and witty remark. Was he deliberately secretive or just quiet? And how could someone direct a film, which entails ordering so many people about, without talking a lot and giving explicit instructions? This peculiarity of Hitchcock's was most troublesome for his actors. Many of them were used to film directors coddling them, discussing in detail the characters they were to play and how to get into the role. Hitchcock did none of this. In rehearsals, he said very little. On the set, too, actors would glance over at him for his approval, only to find him napping or looking bored. According to the actress Thelma Ritter, if Hitchcock liked what you did, he said nothing. If he didn't, he looked like he was going to throw up. And yet somehow, in his own indirect way, he would get his actors to do precisely what he wanted. On the first day of shooting for The 39 Steps in 1935, Hitchcock's two leads, Madeleine Carroll and Robert Donat, arrived on the set a little tense. That day they were to act in one of the movie's more complex scenes, playing relative strangers who, however, had gotten handcuffed together earlier in the plot, and still handcuffed, were forced to run through the Scottish countryside, actually a soundstage, to escape the film's villains. Hitchcock had given them no real sign of how he wanted them to act the scene. Carroll in particular was bothered by the director's behavior. This English actress, one of the most elegant film stars of the period, had spent much of her career in Hollywood, where directors had treated her like royalty. Hitchcock, on the other hand, was distant, hard to figure out. She had decided to play the scene with an air of dignity and reserve, the way she thought a lady would respond to the situation of being handcuffed to a strange man. To get over her nervousness, she chatted warmly with Donat, trying to put both him and herself in a collaborative mood. When Hitchcock arrived on set, he explained the scene to the two actors, snapped a pair of handcuffs on them, and proceeded to lead them through the set, across a dummy bridge and among other props. Then, in the middle of this demonstration, he was suddenly called away to attend to a technical matter. He would return soon. They should take a break. He felt in his pockets for the key to the handcuffs, but no, he must have mislaid it, and off he hurried, ostensibly to find the key. Hours went by. Donat and Carol became increasingly frustrated and embarrassed. Suddenly they had no control, a most unusual feeling for two stars on set. While even the humblest crew members were free to go about their business, the two stars were shackled together. Their forced intimacy and discomfort made their earlier banter impossible. They could not even go to the bathroom. It was humiliating. Hitchcock returned in the afternoon. He had found the key. Shooting began. But as the actors went to work, it was hard for them to get over the experience of that day. The movie star's usual cool unflappability was gone. Carol had forgotten all her ideas about how to play the scene, and yet, despite her and Donat's anger, the scene seemed to flow with unexpected naturalness. Now they knew what it was like to be tied together. They had felt the awkwardness, so there was no need to act it. It came from within. 4 years later, Hitchcock made Rebecca.